High Empress Azareth slammed her crested gauntlet onto the obsidian council slab, the impact reverberating through the vaulted chamber like a war drum's echo. By the blood of the first sovereigns, I claim hereditary command of the 7th Fleet. Patronage is mine. Question it again, and face the void's judgment. Her voice sliced the air, mandibles clicking with restrained fury as holographic star maps flickered around her throne, borders bleeding red from relentless pirate incursions. The Star Council recoiled in their alcoves, iridescent scales shimmering under the chamber's auroral lights. Archon Vexlar, his elongated crest drooping in deference, bowed lowest. High Empress, we yield, but the stretched flanks demand more than lineage. The Krell hives press from the rim. Without allies, the Dominion fractures. Azareth's compound eyes narrowed, scanning the assembly. These were her vassals, bred for loyalty yet ever-probing weakness. She straightened, her armored robes whispering against the throne's filigree. Allies? Speak plainly, Archon. The Council's whispers reach me even in the strategium. Vexlar hesitated, tentacles coiling. From the shadowed flanks, voices rose in chorus. Elders and marshals, their chants invoking ancient pacts. A binding alliance, the Terran Union offers ships and engineers. Seal it with consort rights, as law decrees for succession's sake. Azareth's crest flared, a ripple of indigo fury across her exoskeletal frame. Terrans, soft-fleshed upstarts from a backwater fringe, their vessels crude hulks propelled by chemical fury rather than gravitic elegance. I refuse. No mewling primate sullies the throne's lineage. The Dominion stands on Thraxid steel, not alien seed. Murmurs swelled into a tide. Marshal Kelru, broad-shouldered and scarred from 100 boarding actions, thrust forward, his battle claws scraping stone. High Empress, succession hangs by a thread. No air quickens in the royal brood vats. Ancient law binds you, a consort, or the council invokes regency. The borders burn while you cling to pride. Her mandibles ground, tasting the bitter tang of necessity. Public refusal invited fracture. Concession bought time. Very well, she intoned, voice like tempered alloy. Formal procedure commences. Summon the Terran envoy. But know this, the rite remains ceremonial. No true union stains our blood. The council exhaled as one, relief rippling through bioluminescent pulses. Azareth masked her disdain behind imperial poise, signaling the chamber's herald. Proclaim it, Captain Jonah Varen of the Terran Union, appointed ceremonial consort. Escort him to the grand atrium at dawn's cycle. As the holograms dissolved into standby glow, Azareth retreated to her private stratagium, the massive doors sealing with a hydraulic hiss. Alone amid swirling tactical projections, she paced, claws tapping queries into the interface. Stretched borders indeed. Krell swarms had gutted 3 outposts, their bioships adapting faster than predicted. Terran aid was a desperate gambit, their union a patchwork of worlds barely a millennium from barbarism, yet their engineers reputedly jury-rigged miracles from scrap. She dismissed the thought. Propaganda. Dawn's cycle broke with fanfare. Azareth descended the atrium spiral causeway, flanked by honor guard whose plasma lances hummed at ready. Below, the Terran shuttle squatted like a bloated insect amid sleek Dominion corvettes, its ramp lowering to disgorge a diplomatic escort. Stiff uniformed aides and a single figure in unadorned gray fatigues. Captain Jonah Varen stepped forward, unhelmeted, his pale skin unmarked by the ritual scars of nobility. Average height, unassuming build, eyes steady under cropped dark hair, no crest, no scales. Just flesh that could tear on a whim. The escort knelt as protocol demanded, foreheads to deck plate. Jonah did not. Azareth halted at the causeway's base, her shadow engulfing him. Captain Varen, you stand before the High Empress. Kneel, and affirm the right. His gaze met hers without flinching, a faint nod acknowledging her presence. High Empress Azareth, honored to meet you, but kneeling isn't in my diplomatic packet. Equals in negotiation, yeah? That's how Terrans do alliances. Gasps rippled from the guards. Kelru, lurking at the atrium's edge, with his faction's loyalists, barked a laugh that echoed off vaulted domes. Insolence. The primate defies custom on sacred ground. Azareth's mandibles parted in a predatory smile, though irritation prickled her spines. Equals? This soft skin presumed familiarity before the first word of treaty. Yet his refusal carried no bluster, merely calm certainty, as if servility were an alien concept. Bold! Bold, Captain. Or foolish. Protocol binds the right. Jonah's shoulders eased fractionally, hands open at his sides. Protocol's a tool, not a chain. I'm here to advise on your technical fronts. Shared data shows my union's got experience with adaptive swarm tactics. Let's talk that. Save the theater for later. The atrium thrummed with tension, guards shifting lances. Kelru stormed forward, his bulk eclipsing aides. High Empress, this mockery endangers all. An interspecies match? The marshals will not stomach it. Proceed, and factions splinter. Border legions recall oaths to blood purity. Your authority crumbles before the Krell even strike. Azrith silenced him with a raised claw, eyes locked on Jonah. The Terran's pulse remained steady. She could scent it. The Eden rhythm of flesh untroubled by threat. Kelru's pheromones reeked of ambition, his flaw ever the blade of division for personal gain. Marshal, your loyalty is noted.
But the Council's will stands. Captain Varen proceeds under supervision.
Turning to her shadow-vetted spymaster via private comms, she subvocalized. Betting. Now. Full scan. Loyalties. Skills. Hidden agendas. Discreet. The spymaster's affirmative pulsed back, tendrils already weaving into Terran networks. To Jonah, she extended a gauntleted hand. Not in warmth, but command. You are assigned ceremonial vigil in the outer suites. Supervised. Flout protocol again, and diplomacy ends. He clasped it briefly, grip firm without challenge, skin warm against her cool alloy. Understood. Vigil sounds like a good spot to review those border schematics. Got any multi-species data on Krell bioarmor weak points? Kelru snarled, retreating with his coterie, mutters of abdication's shadow trailing. Azrith ignored them, guiding Jonah toward the suites through colonnades alive with courtier stares. Whispers chased them. The flesh thing walks unbowed. Her own thoughts churned. Disdain for his presumption warred with strategic calculus. The Dominion teetered. This Terran's refusal bespoke resilience, not idiocy. Perhaps his advising held merit. In the shadowed antechamber, she halted attendants with a gesture. Captain, the treaty preliminaries begin at zenith. Present your union's assets. Fail to impress, and the right dissolves. Jonah nodded, already scanning a proffered holopad with quick multitasking glances, flicking between fleet dispositions and Krell attack vectors without pause. We'll impress. Or adapt till we do. Your call. Azrith watched him settle into the suite, her disdain a thin veil over calculation. Personal comfort yielded to necessity. The Empire demanded this farce. As doors sealed, she signaled the spymaster anew. Prioritize his engineering logs. If he proves worthless, we discard him. If not, she let the thought trail, crest flattening in resolve. Yet in the quiet hum of the palace core, a flicker of intrigue stirred. This human moved without deference's crutch, his eyes reading the room's undercurrents as keenly as any courtier. Strategic necessity indeed. But what hidden facets lurked in that unyielding frame? The borders bled. Time would test him. And her. Zenith approached. Azareth strode to the negotiation vault. Jonah had supervised distance behind. Marshals glares like plasma trails. Kelru's faction plotted in alcoves, but she held the throne's weight. The Terran would serve, or shatter. Either way, the Dominion endured under her claw. The vault's adamantine doors hissed open under Azreth's claw, admitting the High Empress and her shadowed entourage into Zenith's heart. Crystal hollows projected the treaty's glowing clauses across the chamber's obsidian expanse, refracting light into razor-edged spectra that danced over assembled nobles. Jonah Varen trailed at the mandated 5 paces, his Terran frame unbowed despite the marshal's plasma glare scrutiny, while whispers slithered from alcoves where Kelru's faction coiled. Like vipers, High Empress, intoned Lord Vexer of House Vel, detaching from the council fringe with predatory grace. His iridescent scales shimmered under the hollows, mandibles clicking in feigned deference. The zenith hour approaches, yet whispers persist that this union risks Dominion transit rights. Permit me to remind the Council of ancient precedent. Only a proven heir consort may seal such pacts. Azrith's crest flared subtly, a warning ripple she quelled with iron will. Vexar's gambit was transparent. House Vel's rival suitor himself, lobbying to supplant the Terran with a pure-blood match. The council murmured assent, frills quivering. She settled onto the throne dais, her voice a silken blade. Precedent bends to necessity, Lord Vexar. Rehearse the signing. Let flaws reveal themselves. The legalist Dalkir. activated the simulation. Hollow clauses scrolled, territorial concessions, fleet integrations, the binding consort clause tethering Jonah's name to her lineage. Marshals positioned Jonah at the peripheral dais, ceremonial stylus in his blunt human grip. As Thalkir droned the transit subclauses, warp lane allocations, resupply protocols, Jonah's brow furrowed, his eyes tracing the projections with unnatural focus. "High Empress," Jonah interjected, voice steady amid the chamber's hush. He stepped forward a fraction, ignoring martial twitches. Clause 17B. The transit buffer zones. They're calibrated for Thraxid cruiser mass, but they overlap contested Krellian spurs. A single incursion, and enemy pickets could vector through unmonitored, destabilizing the entire eastern flank. Silence fractured like brittle chitin. Thalkir's frills inverted in shock. "Terran, you overstep. These clauses are ratified by the Grand Lexicon." "Ratified, yes," Jonah cut in, humble deference threading his tone, as if amending a routine manifest. "But the spurs shifted post-last cascade. Your models haven't recompiled. Shift the buffers by 0.7 parsecs, tie them to dynamic fleet telemetry. It seals the gap without renegotiating core yields." Vexar hissed, mandibles splaying. "Insolence. A soft skin presumes to rewrite Dominion law?" Azareth's pulse thrummed beneath her scales, intrigue warring with protocol. Dismissal would fuel Dexer's faction. Indulgence invited chaos. Yet the Terran's words resonated. Pattern recognition alien scribes often wrote mist, connecting stellar drift to tactical vulnerability.
She raised a claw, silencing the swell.
Thalkir, convene a formal review of the Terran's revision.
Verify the claim against current spurs. The signing halts until resolved. The legalist's vents wheezed in disbelief, but he bowed, hollows flickering as he summoned archives. Nobles exchanged crests of unease. Kelru's eyes narrowed from the shadows, her tail lashing once. Jonah retreated without flourish, resuming his post as if he'd merely noted a misaligned cargo crate as the review dragged into the zenith's eve. A marshal hissed at Azrith's flank.
"Empress, this delays the pact."
Factions murmur. "Let them," she murmured, gaze fixed on Jonah's impassive form. His intervention was no boast, mere competence, wielded like a tool from his engineering satchel. Humans, she mused, juggled crises as breath. Thalkir returned, frills erect in reluctant admission. The spurs have drifted 0.12 parsecs since ratification. The Terran's buffer adjustment. Olds. It fortifies the lanes without concession. Vexar's scales dulled. Coincidence, or sabotage veiled as aid. The chamber ignited then, not in debate, but circulation. Data slates whispering from servant claws to noble grips. An anonymous dossier, etched in shadowed code. Jonah Varen, Terran envoy, covert operative history, special ops logs decrypted from Blacknet archives, schematics of alien hulls in his possession. Espionage, Vexar proclaimed, thrusting his slate aloft. He undermines from within. Procedural safeguards demand isolation. Crests flared empire-wide. Marshals closed ranks around Jonah, who met their glares with calm inquiry. If evidence convicts, judge it, but the treaty flaw stands regardless. Azrith's throne claws dug into the dais, propriety straining. Factional distrust crested like a solar flare, Kelru's whispers amplifying Vexar's cry. Public execution of the pact risked fracture. Private doubt eroded her rule. Safeguards, yes, she decreed, voice resonant. The Terran consort enters supervised proximity to my war chamber. Competence and intentions will clarify under scrutiny. No isolation. Observation. Marshals herded Jonah closer, his stride unhurried, as if escort were mere protocol. Vexar protested, but her glare quelled him. The council yielded, procedural purity intact. In the war chamber's crimson glow, adjacent to Zenith's vault, Azrith oversaw the transit. Consoles hummed with fleet telemetry. Engineers hunched over spur projections. Jonah stood at arm's reach. Marshals like statues at his flanks. "Review the buffers," she commanded Thalkir. With the Terran present, Jonah leaned in, fingers dancing over auxiliary panel without invitation, adaptability seamless, as if human hands were forged for such interfaces. "Your telemetry's static. Link it to the forward arrays. It'll auto-adjust for drift." "An engineer?" Crest low, balked. "Such integration breaches sanctity." "Test it," Azrith interjected, curiosity cracking her formality. Protocol be damned, survival demanded proof. Thalkir complied, hollows shifting, buffers realigned fluidly, gaps sealing like wounds. Engineers' vents cycled faster, frills perking in tandem awe. Impossible, one muttered. He multitasks the feeds, 3 domains at once, without error. Jonah shrugged, humble as dawn. Field habit. Keeps the lanes open. Yet Azareth sensed deeper. His eyes flicked between noble postures, reading subtext. Vexer's coiled rage. Kelru's veiled calculation. Emotional currents humans navigated instinctively, where her court navigated by edict. Vexar presses the dossier, a marshal reported, slate pulsing. Demands full purge. She waved it aside. Permit the Terran a restricted briefing with your fleet engineers, Thalkir. Breach ceremony if it proves his value. Monitor every syllable. Thalkir's mandibles clacked hesitation, but he nodded, summoning the cadre. Jonah settled at the hollow pit, not as intruder, but collaborator. Explaining warp harmonics with patient sketches, drawing Thraxide nods. Your mass tolerances are rigid, he noted. Blend them with adaptive human relays. We've jury-rigged worse in asteroid belts. An engineer's frill bloomed fully, vents exhaling wonder. Terrans endure such voids without fatigue? Patterns across hull stress and stellar drift. Novel. Azareth watched from the dais, the war chamber's air thickening with guarded evaluation. Jonah's corrections wove through defenses like subtle currents, forcing ceremonial distance into intimate trial. Vexar's rival shadow loomed, but the Terran's quiet competence chipped at it, human resilience, unassuming, reshaping the pack's fragile scaffold. Kelro slithered to her side in alcove gloom. He binds you closer, Empress, or ensnares. Azareth's crest held steady, strength unyielding.
He serves, and in serving, proves.
The Dominion's weight lightened fractionally. The Terran was no shatterpoint. Yet, but under her claw he sharpened into something vital. Alarms pierced the command vault like venom spines, red pulses racing across the obsidian holoscreens. High Empress's wreath's crest flared instinctively as the border warden's voice crackled through the link. Raid confirmed. Sovereign. Creshery corsairs breaching the Veil fringe. 3 frigates, weapons hot. They're probing our Stargate relays. Her primary claw slammed the override panel, postponing the binding ceremony in a single decree. No time for pageantry. The Dominion's edge demanded proof now, not vows. Jonah Varen stood at her flank, his Terran frame unbowed amid the surging tech adapts. His eyes flicked to the feeds, calm as a still pool. Mutual defense starts here, he said, voice level. Send me to the test array. I'll stabilize the sequence if it spikes. Azareth's gaze pinned him, mandibles clicking once. Suspicion coiled in her gut threads, but the raid's shadow loomed larger than court whispers. Go. Prove utility, Terran, or ornament yourself useless. She waved him toward the shuttle bay, her inner council already murmuring. Expel the soft skin, they hissed, before he fractures alliances further. The life systems test unfolded in the orbital cradle above Saravia Prime, a colossal Stargate nexus humming with warp field harmonics. Thraxide engineers swarmed the gantry, their kitten gleaming under floodlamps, multi-limbs dancing over consoles in rote precision. Jonah dropped from the shuttle, toolkit slung low, and wove into the chaos as the first raid echoes battered the relays. Feedback screams tore through the array, the Stargate sequence destabilized, warp coils threatening cascade failure that could strand patrols or worse invite the Corsairs inward. Containment breach imminent, lead engineer Thalcray bellowed, her crest collapsing in panic. Probes jammed, fields inverting, standard protocols failing against the raid's EMP sabotage. Jonah didn't hesitate. He vaulted a railing, scanning the holoflux with that peculiar Terran squint. Reroute the tertiary buffers through the auxiliary vents, he called, already prying a panel with a multi-tool that looked laughably primitive. His hands blurred, one stripping corrupted conduits, the other patching code via a jury-rigged neural link. Fingers flying across alien glyphs he'd mastered in weeks. Multitasking, the adepts would later term it, though to him it was just keeping plates spinning. Thalcree's compound eyes widened. Impossible. Human neural density can't interface without Fryback. The sequence demands pure, Thraxid sync. He ignored her, sweat beading on his skin as he wedged a salvaged crystal shard into the coil housing, improvising a harmonic shunt from battlefield scraps. Sparks flew, the array groaned. Then, silence. The Stargate sequence locked stable, relays humming clean. Jonah straightened, wiping his brow, oblivious to the stares.
Improbable, Thalkree rasped, mandibles agape.
Circumstantial resonance, perhaps. No Terran should thread those fields without augmentation. From the command vault, Azareth watched the feed, her crest steady but threads tightening. Circumstantial skill, yes. Luck's shadow on competence. Yet the raid faltered. Corsairs recoiled from the fortified gate. Mutual value glimpsed, however faint. A sniper pulse cracked the vacuum. It lanced from a shadowed maintenance drone, Splinter faction mark. Azerth's rivals. Striking to discredit the Terran farce, the bolt arced toward Thalkree's exposed flank, chronal charge to vaporize. Jonah moved like liquid shadow. No Thraxid leap, no armored charge, just a roll, body twisting midair in a human spiral that defied their angular physics. He snatched a loose grapple cable, whipped it into a makeshift flail, and intercepted the drone mid-drift. The impact shattered its cloaking field. His boot followed, crushing the emitter with precision that spoke of uncounted fields, not parade drills. Unconventional, brutal economy, no waste, no flourish. The assailant drone vented plasma and died silent. Jonah landed light, scanning for secondaries. Breath even. Thalkree's claws trembled. You anticipated the vector. Without reflex augments, pattern recognition, he said simply, holstering the cable. Trajectories tell stories. Azareth's vault erupted in demands. Expel him, a soldier in consort robes. Treachery veiled. Vizier Kreshel thundered, his faction crest dominant. The raid was pretext. He invites chaos. Her claw silenced them. Inquiry first. She keyed the secure archive, dispatching adepts to Terran databases. Minutes stretched, reports flooded in. Captain Jonah Varen, Special Operations, Field Engineer, theaters from void skirmishes to planetary sieges. Improvised nukes from scrap endurance marches outpacing drones. Psyops that turned enemy packs. No boasts, just logs of quiet survival. Suspicion transmuted. Not ceremony, Azareth declared. Performance evaluation. Formal. Attach him to Recon Sortie Theta.
7. Observe methods under my rut.
Kreshel recoiled. Sovereign, the Corsairs, probe deeper because of them. Her voice cracked, propriety's edge, a rare glint of personal stake. Jonah served. The Dominion breathed easier. Reluctant protection, yes, but protection nonetheless. The reconnaissance sortie launched at dusk cycle, a sleek prowler slipping toward the Veil fringe. Azareth monitored from her throne vault, feed split between Jonah's helmet cam and live raid telemetry. He integrated seamlessly with the Thraxid squad, pilot Vexara, scout Learthan, adapting to their pheromone cues in hours, not cycles. Flank harmonics off by 0.3, he noted mid-jump, tweaking the prowler's dampeners with a field hack. Vexara's crest twitched in surprise. Humans fatigued after shifts, yet he multitasked scans, banter, and repairs without falter. Corsair remnants lurked in asteroid veils, their jammers thick. Learthan's probes blanked. Rote paths exhausted, the scout clicked. Frustration venting. Jonah leaned into the holomap, connecting debris patterns to engine plumes. They're ghosting thermals here, he traced. Boy steady. Faint low. Strike from the ecliptic shadow. Improvised decoys from our exhaust vents. Vexara tested it. The prowler danced, drawing fire. Jonah patched a glancing hit mid-evasion, endurance holding as Thraxiids flagged. Corsairs scattered, one crippled by pinpoint return fire. Human creativity meshed with Thraxiid firepower. Back aboard, reports piled. Terran resilience defies metrics. Vexara submitted. He bonds pack without pheromones. Learns our thrust curves faster than adepts. Azareth dismissed the Council's renewed expulsion pleas with a crest snap. He stabilizes gates, thwarts blades, unmasks raiders. Demands denied. Kreshel's threads quivered, unsettled, outmaneuvered. Her opponent circled tighter, but the signal landed. The Terran endured under her aegis. In quiet vault hours, Azareth replayed the feeds alone. Jonah's repair hands, steady under fire. His humble shrug at praise. Just work. No arrogance, yet feet stacked like warp charges. Human normalcy. Alien impossibility. Her claw traced the console, strength uncracked but intrigue blooming. Duty bound him. Survival sharpened him. Partnership's first thread, reluctant but real. The ceremony loomed anew, but now with teeth. The Dominion watched, factions coiling. Jonah Varan was no shatterpoint. He was the edge. High Canyon Lirves unrolled the vellum scroll with deliberate claws, his multifaceted eyes gleaming under the vaulted glow of the sanctum's crystal spires. By the xenogenic statutes of the Third Reckoning, he intoned, voice echoing like grinding stone. House Vela petitions review of the Treaty of Binding. The Terran consort fails the purity of lineage. Ancient law voids this union before the rite of ascension seals it. Azareth's crest flared subtly beneath her regal mantle, the chamber's assembled clerics and nobles shifting in their tiered alcoves. She felt the weight of their stares, Vel's smug antennae twitching, the lesser houses murmuring like distant storms. The petition was a blade, honed by factional grudge, aimed not just at Jonah but at her own throne. Yet amid the ritual incense, her gaze flicked to the human at her side, his posture steady, fingers drumming a subtle rhythm on his thigh, a tick she'd come to recognize as calculation, not nerves. "Canon Lirves," she said, her voice a silken command that silenced the hall. "The treaty stands ratified by imperial decree. Precedent review serves truth, not ambition. Convene your panel at once." As the clerics bowed and dispersed to their oracular terminals, Jonah leaned close, his breath warm against the sensitive frills of her neck. "They're invoking clauses from your pre-warp era," he murmured, eyes scanning the scroll's projected holotext. "Obsolete defenses baked into the code, meant to repel inferior genolines. I can crack it." She turned her head fractionally, mandibles clicking in private amusement. His confidence never brimmed into boast. It simply was, like the steady thrum of a fusion core. "Prove it before law demands your exclusion, Consort Varan." In the antechamber's dimmed glow, Jonah hunched over a relic terminal, its interfaces pulsing with Cerevian runes long archived. Azareth watched from the shadowed archway, arms folded, as he interfaced his personal slate, Terran tech, compact and unadorned, directly into the ancient grid. His fingers danced across dual pads, eyes narrowing as fractal patterns bloomed in the air. "See here," he said, after a span that felt eternal yet passed in his effortless blur of focus. He isolated a thorny subroutine, its loops a labyrinth of exclusionary logic designed to repel non-Thraxid bloodlines. Their ancestors coded this for border shields, too. Defensive algorithms that adapt to fleet signatures but lock out xenogenic contaminants. It's elegant, but rigid. Predictive matrices assume static threats. Azareth stepped closer, her shadow merging with his. The algorithm's core was a ghost from her dynasty's founding wars, a bulwark against the old hive scourges. No court engineer had touched it in cycles. It was clerical sanctity. Yet Jonah traced its veins with alien intuition, murmuring connections, quantum echoes to Terran firewall cascades, biological analogies from his world's pandemics. He rewove a thread, a dynamic filter that learned from incursion patterns, bolstering borders without demanding more hulls or crews. This adaptation, he concluded, projecting the sim, secures the Veil Nebula systems. No fleet expansion, just smarter walls. Her frills quivered, a rare thrill of possibility. Humans juggled such complexities as breath. Her savants labored days for less. "You decoded what my archives deem unbreakable," she said softly. "The panel will test this under oath. Stand ready." The Canon's panel reconvened in the sanctum's heart, oaths sworn on the crystal of reckoning. Jonah knelt before the cleric's dais, his voice steady as he unveiled the adaptation. Lirvis's claws tapped skeptically, probing with ritual queries. How does a soft flesh envoy presume to amend sacred code? Jonah met the Canon's gaze without flinching. By reading its intent. Canon. Your statutes exclude by pattern, not prejudice. This honors that. Evolves it. He walked them through the weave, layer by layer, answering barbs with patient clarifications, multitasking the hollow projection while fielding side queries on implementation. No fatigue shadowed his brow. He adapted to their archaic syntax mid-flow, bridging gaps with analogies from Thraxid lore she'd half forgotten. Azarath observed from her throne dais, propriety a thin veil over her quickening pulse. The panel's antennae drooped in unison, amazement cracking their stoic facades. Whispers rippled, a Terran, oath-bound, reshaping clerical law. But House Vel struck. Lord Kethvar rose, his house colors blazing. This is blasphemy. A Xeno tampers with our defenses. I move censure, expel the consort, void the treaty. The chamber erupted in assent chimes, Vel's allies amplifying the vote, as Wreath's mandibles snapped shut. She rose, imperial scepter igniting. Veto exercised, she declared. The words thunder. The trial proceeds. Censure dismissed. Kethvar recoiled, his crest flattening. The nobles exchanged glances. Her veto burned political capital. A crack in the facade of consensus. Yet in defending Jonah, she bound her fate tighter to his. He caught her eye across the hall, a nod of quiet thanks. No triumph in it, just partnership. The War Council convened that eve in the Strategium, star maps sprawling like neural webs across the obsidian table. Admirals and house lords crowded in, the air thick with ionized tension. Azurith entered last, Jonah at her flank, and silenced them with a gesture. Consort Baron's adaptation to the ancient defensive grid merits trial, she announced, her tone brooking no dissent. It secures our borders anew without straining our yards. Credit where due. A Terran's insight revives what Rote preserved. Murmurs swelled, shock from the fleet admiral, whose antennae twitched in disbelief. Highness, this untested code from an outsider? Test it, she commanded. Noble opinions shifted. Vel's block narrowed. Some lords nodding as Jonah's hollow bloomed, demonstrating the weave's elegance. Even skeptics leaned in, their dismissal fracturing into curiosity. Azurith felt the tide turn, subtle as a nebulous drift. Jonah's competence, humbly offered, eroding opposition like tide on stone. She turned to Admiral Thesiskor, the grizzled veteran whose scars mapped forgotten campaigns. Run live simulations. Commit a squadron to the Veil Nebula grid. Imperial resources back this plan. Theskor's multifaceted eyes widened, a physiological flush rippling his carapace. Rare deference from one who'd commanded since her mother's reign. As you decree, Empress. If it holds, it will, Jonah interjected softly. No presumption, just fact. Theskor studied him anew, then inclined his head, a gesture Azurith noted as profound respect budding. As the council dispersed, projections flickering to life on fleet channels, Azurith drew Jonah aside into the Strategium's alcove. The chamber's hum faded, leaving only the soft pulse of tactical feeds. You rewrite defenses that once barred you, she said, her voice low, formality yielding to warmth. Vel coils tighter, but today, you narrowed their fangs. He smiled faintly, rubbing his neck, a human tell of modesty. Just connecting dots, Azurith.
Your code's brilliant. Needed a nudge.
Her frill brushed his shoulder in a moment's contact, electric. Duty demanded the right, factions the treaty's frailty. But here, in this shared ingenuity, partnership bloomed true. The Dominion watched, but she saw the edge sharpening. Jonah Varen, not Shatterpoint, but Forge. The simulations launched at dawn cycle, squadron signatures weaving into the Veil's grid. Clerics monitored from the sanctum, nobles from their keeps. Azurith stood with Jonah in the command nexus, Theskor at their side. As incursion probes, mimicking Skorvath raiders, slammed the barriers. The ancient code flexed, Jonah's adaptation pulsing like a living vein. Probes shattered against adaptive shields. Patterns learned and countered in real time. Thesiskor's claws gripped the console, his voice a rasp. Efficiency up 30%, no hull losses projected. Impossible. Yet it endures. Azurith's crest rose fully, pride not for Empire alone, but for the human beside her, humble engineer, rewriting exclusions into strength. Vel's petition withered in the data's light, precedent bent, not broken. In the quiet aftermath, as reports flooded in vindicating the design, Jonah glanced at her. Team effort, your fleet makes it fly. She allowed a regal laugh, mandibles parting. Indeed, consort, and ours flies higher for it. The right loomed, treaty teeth bared, but now, with Jonah's code woven in, the Dominion glimpsed a new bulwark. Not exclusion, but alliance forged in code and crisis. A blade flashed through the festival's gilded haze, aimed not at Azurith's throat but at the vizier at her elbow, Lord Kethar, whose absence would unravel her fragile eastern flank. The air thickened with incense and the low thrum of crystal chimes as the state gallus whirled in the grand atrium. Thraxied nobles in iridescent carapaces clinking goblets under holographic starfields. Jonah Varen, her Terran consort in ceremonial silks, moved like liquid shadow from her side. He lunged without a sound, his human arm, bare now, diplomatic pretense shed, snapping out to clamp the assassin's wrist mid-arc. The attacker's vibro dagger skittered across the polished obsidian floor, sparking against ritual mosaics depicting ancient conquests. Gasps rippled outward as Jonah twisted, driving his knee into the intruder's midsection with a force that cracked chitin plating. The figure crumpled, hooded robes parting to reveal House Vel markings etched into pale underarmor, but Jonah didn't pause. He pinned the assailant face down, one hand wrenching the arm high while the other yanked a concealed comm from the intruder's belt. "Lockdown protocols," Azareth commanded, her voice a silken thunder that cut through the chaos. She rose from the dais, her crown gems flaring under emergency strobes, every line of her regal frame unyielding. Guards swarmed from shadowed alcoves, but her gaze fixed on Jonah, the human who had just upended protocol by exposing his unscarred adaptable flesh to imperial scrutiny. "Seal the atrium. No one leaves until I say." The lockdown clamped like a vice. Force fields hummed to life, sealing bulkheads with a resonant whine. Azareth's mind raced through contingencies, her mandibles clicking faintly in controlled ire. External saboteurs. This reeked of the Creel Concord's shadow games, probing her dominion seams before the right's ink dried. Vizier Kethar signaled the fleet. "Raise alert status to amber across the Veil Nebula. Accuse no one yet, but prepare manifests for their envoys." Measured words, sharper blades. Jonah rose, hauling the subdued attacker to his feet with effortless leverage, his breath steady despite the scuffle. He handed the comm to a guard without flourish, then turned to Azareth, eyes calm under the weight of 100 noble stares. "Perimeter first. Your supremacy. Let me coordinate." She assessed him. This soft-skinned Terran, once a mere treaty ornament, now bared and bold. Protocol demanded she dismiss him, but the festival's peril whispered otherwise. "Do it." He nodded once, already moving. With a subtle gesture, he synced his wrist implant to the atrium's security nexus, a human multitasker's weave of gestures pulling feeds from a dozen sensor clusters while he murmured overrides into a borrowed guard comm. Aliens gawked. Draxid security chiefs prided on rote hierarchies, but Jonah juggled breach scans, personnel logs, and drone redeploys in seamless rhythm, his voice layering commands without stutter. "Eastern vents, cycle airlocks, purge toxins, western galleries, triangulate blind spots from galacams. Reroute 2 hunter drones now." Sweat beaded his brow, yet he endured, chaining tasks as if fatigue were a myth. Within minutes, auxiliary scans pinged. 3 more infiltrators neutralized in the sublevels, their paths converging on the inner circle. Jonah knelt by the captured one's gear, fingers dancing over a forged ident chip. His pattern recognition lit. Subtle glyph mismatches, ink variances tying to Velian script houses. "Not pure House Vel," he said, voice low for her ears alone, signatures forged but sloppy. Cross-reference with Creel trade manifests. Their collaborators launder through Vel's outer holds. Proof in the metadata layers. Azareth's primary advisor, Thalix, hissed from the sidelines, his crest flattening in outrage. "A consort tracing imperial forgeries. This Terran oversteps. Results speak," she cut in, her tone brooking no fracture. Jonah's improvisation had contained the breach where rote sweeps might have failed. Humans, it seemed, connected disparate threads like no Thraxid savant. She signaled her scribes. "Draft the decree." The chamber fell to murmurs as the lockdown lifted in phases. Nobles herded to verification nodes. Azareth stood tall amid the tension, her presence a bulwark. Hours blurred. Jonah's endurance shone as he cross-checked manifests against fleet archives, adapting to Thraxid data fractals faster than her analysts, who paused for hierarchical clearances. Thalix watched, mandibles twitching. He dismissed humans as fleeting diplomats, but this one's resilience gnawed at assumptions. By dawn's simulated glow, the decree scrolled across atrium hollows. By sovereign edict of High Empress Azareth, Captain Jonah Varen, Terran envoy and ceremonial consort, is elevated to Special Technical Advisor on Dominion Defense. Full remit. Threat analysis, countermeasure, integration. His weave into the right's code matrix is hereby ratified as bulwark protocol. Nobles stirred, some crests rising in approval, others flattening in suspicion. House Vel's proxies paled under their robes. Jonah met her gaze, humble surprise flickering before duty reclaimed him. No boast, just a nod. Partnership glimpsed. The Star Council convened in the Obsidian Spire hours later. Holographic thrones materializing for the fractious lords. Azareth presided from her apex seat, Jonah at her flank, visible now, not hidden. Faction heads bayed for blood. Lord Vexer of the Warcrest demanded orbital strikes on Velian outposts. Thalix echoed for purges, his voice a whip crack. The Creel scent is clear. Annihilate their forward bases. Show weakness invites blades. Azareth's claws tapped the armrest. Measured, escalation would ignite the Nebula War, unraveling the rights treaty before it bound. Reprisals, yes, but restrained. Surgical extractions, seize their trade convoys, freeze assets. No fleets cross the veil unbidden. Her eyes flicked to Jonah, whose earlier trace had armed her argument. His quiet input during prep, patterning Creel feints from historical logs, had revealed overextension risks her counsels missed. Vexor bristled, crest flaring. Restraint? After they bare fangs at our heart? Counsels demand thunder, Jonah murmured to her privately, his emotional red piercing the bluster. Vexar's ambition masked fear of Eastern collapse. But thunder scatters allies. Offer them the forged proofs publicly. Let Vel fracture from within. She waited, propriety straining against this Terran's insight. Thraxid honor favored spectacle, yet his subtlety promised stability. Agreed. Broadcast the traces. House Vale will devour its traitors, or answer for them. The council yielded, grumbling, but bent. As projections faded, Azareth turned to Jonah in the antechamber's hush. Your council tips scales. Access granted. Classified strategy briefings. Full vault. From ornament to advisor. You forge paths I did not foresee. He inclined his head. No arrogance. Just steady warmth. Just connecting dots. Supremacy. Your dominion's strengths hold the frame. I adapt within it. Thalix lingered at the threshold, his gaze sharpening on the human. Research queries already forming in his datapad, probing Terran histories for this anomaly. Azureth felt the crack widen, formality yielding to trust, a personal thread weaving through imperial steel. The rights code hummed in her implant, Jonah's contributions embedded, a testament not to exclusion, but alliance. Yet as shadows lengthened in the spire, encrypted pings hinted at deeper webs, cruel shadows stirring beyond the veil. The human's worth was formal now, but the Empire's gaze turned, measuring if this partnership could withstand the storm. High Empress Azareth's claws tightened on the armrests of her command throne, as the holographic starfield erupted in crimson alerts. House Vel has breached the outer pickets, her fleet marshal rasped, mandibles clicking in fury. Their cruisers, bolstered by Creel raiders from beyond the veil, have locked a blockade grid around the capital approaches. Border provinces report ground strikes. Fortress Kalor falls even now. Azareth's multifaceted eyes narrowed, scanning the flickering grid where enemy signatures swarmed like venom flies. The spire's heart thrummed with the Empire's pulse, but betrayal clawed deeper than any blade. House Vel, ancient rivals cloaked in feigned loyalty, had woven this web with foreign filth. Her voice cut the chaos, unyielding. Mobilize the 2nd and 5th fleets. We strike into contested space at once. No mercy for traitors who invite Xenos to our gates. Captain Jonah Varen stood at her side, his human frame steady amid the Thraxid officer's bristling agitation. No tremor in his stance. No widened eyes. Merely a calm assessment of the holo display, fingers already dancing across a portable interface. Empress, their blockade's targeting grid is the linchpin, cyber encrypted, but I've traced the handshake protocols. Give me a strike team and a shadow rig, and I'll crack it wide while we retake Kalor from the ground. Doubt rippled through the chamber, subtle mandible twitches, pheromone vents souring the air. A Vel-aligned admiral hissed, this soft-skinned diplomat presumes to lead Thraxid warriors. His kind falters at the first strain. Azareth silenced him with a glare that could fracture crystal. Jonah's counsel had pierced deeper intrigues before. She would not question it now. You have your authority, consort. Lead the raid. The fortress is yours to reclaim. Jonah nodded once, humble as ever, slinging a compact rig over his shoulder before vanishing into the deployment bays with a mixed squad of Thraxid infiltrators and human techs. Azareth turned to the fleet feeds, her mind a forge of maneuvers. He moves without boast, yet commands as if born to it, she thought, a flicker of unease cracking her regal poise. Duty demanded she wield the hammer. He, the scalpel. Aboard the stealth corvette Shadesfang, Jonah hunched over the cyber console, eyes flicking between 3 streams, the blockade's pulsing grid, real-time feeds from the ground team breaching Kalor's outer walls, and encrypted comms coordinating Azareth's flanking vectors. Thraxid Sergeant Lirak loomed behind him, her chitinous frame tense. Human, your vitals spike no fatigue markers after cycles of this. How? Our warriors cycle out after half. Comes with the job, Jonah murmured, multitasking the raid's layers without pause. rerouting power surges to overload enemy sensors while whispering targeting updates to the ground assault. Eyes on the grid's core node, it's slaved to Kaler's command bunker. Breach the fortress and we blind them. His fingers blurred, adapting to the alien encryption on the fly, pattern-matching quantum keys humans grasped intuitively where Thraxid logic plotted by algorithm. Lyroc's vents flared in astonishment, mandibles parting. You juggle assaults as one weaves silk. Creel codes shift like sand. Yet you predict. Jonah just grinned faintly, bonding the squad with a shared jest over ration packs earlier, turning wary Thraxid into allies mid-drop. They hit Kaler's perimeter under covering fire, Jonah directing drones to mask their advance while slicing auxiliary defenses. Bullets whined. A Thraxid took a grazing hit, but Jonah patched the wound en route. His field medic calm threading resilience into their charge. Azareth's flagship, Eternal Crown, plunged into the blockade's heart, her commands a symphony of precision. Flank Vector Gamma, evade their predictive locks. Enemy fire raked void shields, but she anticipated Vel's rote formations, her political savvy reading their feints like court whispers. Pings from Jonah flooded her console. Grid fracturing, fortress breach at 70%. Hold for my signal. No exhaustion in his tone after hours of unrelenting coordination. Her own officers marveled in hushed vents. The Terran endures like stone. He links cyber and ground as if breathing. Deep in Kaler's coop command node, Jonah slipped past patrols, his adaptability shining, mimicking Thraxid gate from observed drills, hacking access with improvised splices from scavenged panels. The chamber reeked of alien sweat. Vel's Lord Kreeler barked orders to holographic Confederates, their foreign accents grating. Jonah crouched in shadows, rig whispering data bursts that sowed discord. Falsified orders fracturing the blockade's cohesion, exposed logs beaming Krillbacker's identities to Azrith's fleet. Kreeler's bellow shook the walls. The grid fails! Who breaches our net? Jonah struck then, creativity blooming, a jury-rigged EMP pulse from bunker conduits, timed to his ground team's final push. Lights died. Thraxid warriors surged in, Jonah at their fore, dismantling the coalition with captured data slates. Their alliance crumbles, Lyroc voxed, awe threading her voice. You saw patterns we missed, Creel duplicity woven into Vel's thrust. Azareth's fleet pounced as the grid shattered, her decisive maneuver crushing the blockade. In a blaze of plasma, victorious, she strode the Spire's grand hall post-battle. Court assembled under flickering banners. Counselors clamored for purges. House Vel's remnants exiled or executed, blood to cement loyalty. Scour them, urged the hawkish Marshal Voss. Dissent festers. No, Azareth declared, her voice a blade sheathed in silk. Propriety cracked just enough for resolve to gleam. Public prosecution before the Star Tribunal. Conditional pardons for those who recant and serve reconstruction. We bind the Dominion through cohesion, not corpses. Gasps rippled. It risked factions regrouping, her throne's stability a gamble. But Jonah's feats echoed in her mind, his humble ingenuity saving legions. Purge weakens, unity endures. The Star Council chamber gleamed under vaulted stars, holograms linking provincial lords. Azareth ascended the dais, Jonah at her side, his uniform scarred but posture unbroken. By ancient law and proven valor, I name Captain Jonah Varen, my recognized consort, and joint strategic steward. His Terran insight fortifies our realm against shadows within and without. Murmurs crested, then stilled. Lyroc testified first, mandibles firm. He led where we faltered. Enduring trials that break chitin. Humans, they redefine alliance. Voss bowed. Concession grudging yet real. The court accepts. The Empire stabilizes under this bond. As seals etched into the eternal ledgers, Azareth met Jonah's gaze. Steady, unassuming, no triumph in his eyes. Only quiet partnership. She was born to rule, she realized. A warmth piercing imperial frost. And learned that true power is finding an equal. The Dominion stood firmer, gazes shifting from measure to alliance, as encrypted pings faded into secured voids.